I've been enhanced to something that is not a man, but far above. I'm made of some new kind of stuff, of a grown new skin, and I don't feel that it's a sin. This flesh has split, and you won't be a part of it. Yeah, it's not done yet, but it's a start. Now maybe you could grow a heart. I've grown alone, and I'm what's grown. Someday you'll have to grow your own. To let the tendrils truly climb, they must feed on the naked eye. Now
Woo! Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming. My name is Gabriel Riccio. You may know me from my project, The Gabriel Construct, or from the King Crimson sheet music books that I create with Trey Gunn. I want to thank Anthony Garone for giving me the opportunity to interview artists I've collaborated with on Make Weird Music. Today, I have Ben Spees with me here. Singer, guitarist, keyboardist, producer of the Portland Microtonal rock band, The Mercury Tree. We just listened to Grown Apart, which is the opening song off of their newly released 7th record, Self-Similar. So feel free to put any questions you have in the chat as we go along, and we can get to them if there's time. Welcome, Ben. How you doing today?
I'm good. That was fun to hear the studio version of that song again. I actually haven't listened to it in a bit.
Yeah, I know how that goes. You just hear things so many times when you're working on them that you'd never want to hear it again for like a year, you know.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to try and bring up YouTube so I could see if there was anyone in the chat commenting.
Looks like, yeah, it's going. So yeah, let's give a little bit of history first about our relationship with each other. Just catch people up. So I first saw you guys at Progtoberfest 2014 at the end of October, which was just under 2 months after your 4th record, Countenance, was released.
You got a copy right there. That's awesome.
Yeah, and turns out I don't have copies of all of them right here, but I've got what I have. And so that was the start of the band's current incarnation, in which your trio lineup solidified. So your drummer, Connor Riley, had already been drumming with you for 2 albums, right? Pterodactyls and Freezing Phantom Form. But bassist Oliver Grant Campbell, and backing vocalist as well, and sometimes lead vocalist, joined halfway through the making of this record, right?
That is correct, yes. Oliver came in halfway through Countenance. Our previous bass player had decided to retire. That was Aaron Clark, who had played on Freezing Phantom Form. And Oliver was in a band that we had toured with a couple of times called Red Foreman. And Aaron kindly talked to him and convinced him to join the band so that we had someone ready to take over. And he did a fantastic job of diving in and really put his stamp on that album and all of the music that was to come.
Right on. Well, I mean, those guys are a seriously fantastic rhythm section, and this record
Yeah.
also saw you guys experimenting with microtones for the first time, right?
Yes, just a tiny bit. In fact, I almost forget that sometimes. But I had just this is kind of the story of like how I even got into it. I had like I sort of like by chance come across this setting on my keyboard called pitch slope, and I found that if you the default was 1, if you change it to 0.5, you would get quarter tones. You'd get an octave stretched across 2 octaves of keys. So I just started playing around with that, and I thought, this is fun. I just thought it sounded like demented circus music. So I was like, this is a fun gimmick. I'll just like throw this in a song, and it's like a one-time thing because like, I mean, what else can you do with it? It's a gimmick. Um, and then so that was the first, and like it took me a little while to get more seriously into it after that. I kind of wish I'd gone deeper at the time, but that was the beginning at least.
Yeah, that was the song Vestigial, right?
Yes, I should have said that. Yes, the
Oh,
Vestigial, which is sort of the little bit of an Extra Life rip-off song. I was getting super into the band Extra Life. Fantastic band. If anyone hasn't checked them out, you should.
I haven't checked them out. I guess I have some homework.
Oh
Um,
yeah, oh yeah. Well, you're in for a treat.
all right. So basically at this point you were using quarter tones as just like ornamental color. It wasn't really the center of the music.
Yes, it was just like a crazy element to throw in the loop, and it didn't really have, it was just sort of like a sound. It didn't have a real like melodic harmonic meaning like it would come to have later.
Right. But what you were already doing at the time was playing guitar and keyboards and singing and using all these looper pedals all without a laptop, even just using this Korg workstation as the center of it all, which really impressed me seeing that for the first time. And I mean, it still impresses me today. Um,
Well, thanks. I've never liked using laptops on stage, and I did a little while. I had some horrible experiences with them, like overheating or like Windows wanting to update in the middle of the set. And they just like, no disrespect to anyone who uses them, but they look kind of lame. And I just rather like I work on a computer all day for my job. I don't really want to have to work on a computer while I'm playing music. Totally valid if you do, but like I found that I could like do everything I wanted to on the workstation, and I just enjoyed it a lot more. I mean, it's obviously it has a lot of limitations, especially now compared to a computer system. So I periodically, think I should redo my whole setup, which is, a massive undertaking. But it's worked well for like the last 10 years or so, and I've been adding more and more things onto it, like every album.
well, sometimes limitations are really creatively helpful, actually.
That's so true.
Um, So the next time I saw you guys, I actually got to play with you, which was really exciting. That was at Harding House in Chicago in mid 2016, which was once again about 2 months after your next record, Permutations, came out. And microtones played a much bigger role in this one, which is evident from the start of the opening song, Symptoms, even though it's still kind of used as an ornament there. But you hear more of that on the title song, and then most especially in the song Ether Ore, which is oddly enough in Wendy Carlos's alpha tuning, right? And then
Yes,
on top of that, you've got polymeters going on. Like I believe it's double drums where you've got a 4/4 in the left channel and 5/4 in the right channel. So
that's
just a
exactly right. Yes.
wild song.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really proud of that song. And like we were discussing in the pre-interview, that was the written at the last minute for the album because I had just like sort of gotten seriously hooked on microtones, and I wanted to see what I could do. Especially, so I had done permutations first, and that uses quarter tones, which I implemented just with like a pitch shifter pedal set to 50 cents. So I just like had to tap it every time I wanted to switch between quarter tone and normal note. So like I could do a little bit with that, but obviously very limiting. I couldn't play like every song in the whole set that way. I'd like wear out the switch. Um, so I was looking for what else I could do, and like obviously it's easier to retune a keyboard. So and I found the alpha tuning when I played with it. I thought it was super cool. I got really into Wendy Carlos, who has an amazing album called Beauty in the Beast. which is really a formative influence for me on about other people's microtonal music. So that's where that came from.
Very cool. So we played together again the following year in Chicago in September 2017. Yet another house show, a place called the Handsome Squid. And at that point, you guys played an early version of your sixth record, Spider Milk, which was your first material in 17 EDO, or equal division of the octave. So your first like fully committing to the microtonal thing for a full record. But at that point, when you played it, it only featured one guitar. So I got to hear kind of an early version of the record. And before that album materialized, you did a collaborative EP with Cryptic Ruse called Cryptic Tree, which was also entirely in 17 EDO. And then I guess, that worked out well enough that you two just decided to fuse together, and Deja from Cryptic Ruse joined as a proper second guitarist, right? And so you reworked Spider Milk as a two-guitar record?
Yes, that's right. So, I mean, it was really great that you happened to be there, or like we invited you, however it happened, for that Laughing Squid show, because that was really a unique point where it was very transitional. Like we still had the normal guitars as well as the 17 EDO guitars, and we were trying to play old songs, which it was it was very difficult, like both, logistically and mentally, to play half the set in one tuning and half in another. But yeah, I sort of went after Deja a little bit because I was such a huge Cryptic Ruse fan. That was one of my top three musicians: Wendy Carlos, Brendan Burns, an amazing album called Micropangea, and
Yep.
Cryptic Ruse. Those were my favorite microtonal albums. But particularly Cryptic Ruse, I couldn't believe this was not huge already, because it was so well done. It was metally, but it was the type of metal I like, because I'm like picky about my metal. It's more post metal, more sludgy, and it's just like the tunings were used so effectively. So I sort of like went after Deja to try and get a collaboration going, and then managed to rope Deja into this performance at C-Prog. And then after the C-Prog performance, which went so well, we like added some Cryptic Tree songs to the set. I was like, hey, you're in Seattle, why don't you move to Portland and join the band? And that ended up happening. So we had an amazing year and a half or so of working these songs up into two guitar versions, which had always kind of been my dream for the band, to have the real like stereo guitar thing. And as it turns out, I can never hang on to a second guitarist, but I really enjoyed having one while I did. And
Right.
Deja did an amazing job.
Yeah, you're not kidding about that. So here's the record, Spider Milk, and we played together again about a month after this record came out in May 2019 at yet another Chicago house show, and I got to see the two guitar iteration of the band. And at that point, you had completely switched to 17, and the only old song that you were playing in your set, I believe, and that continues to this point, is Jazz Hands of Doom from this record, reconfigured in 17. So can you talk about what it's like to make that kind of translation, bringing a song from one tuning system to another?
Well, I had a lot of help from Deja. So the new keyboard songs that I play have the 17 notes fully spread out from like middle C to the F above the next C. But because of the way there was really no way to translate that for jazz hands. So what we did instead was we did a 12 out of 17 tuning. So basically, Deja like did some calculations to figure out what set of 12 notes from 17 would best approximate the original song. And then I set up a custom tuning on the keyboard so that those 12 notes were all like slightly tuned to be notes from 17, but that I could still play all the original chord shapes. So that's how that worked. I can't take much credit for it. Then it was a little harder for Oliver, because he had to just sort of like figure out which notes were which, because there were a lot, there'll be like multiple options when you're going from 12 to 17, depending on what note it is. So we just kind of like, worked that out in practice, and it's always been like a crowd favorite song, and it's always really fun to play. So it's good to have one old song in the set.
Yeah. Wow, that's wild. So, all right, you returned to being a trio for your latest record, Self Similar, which is the album we're here to talk about today. And
Hey.
I got to see you play a good chunk of this record a couple weeks after it came out here in Baltimore at Joe Squared, very recently. And I really think this record is your most complete statement yet. It runs the gamut from gorgeous sections to really exciting and energetic material. It's a really dynamic experience. Um, and it's such a dense record. I feel like we can barely even scratch the surface on it, but let's try our best. Um, so, it's just wild watching your trajectory here because your music has evolved so much over the years, and the self-titled Mercury Tree debut was kind of relatively straightforward alternative metal, and now at your seventh record, nobody could accuse you of that at all.
I sure hope not. How humiliating to have our old work described as alternative metal.
I'm sorry.
I thought of it as more just, I mean, it's probably more like alt rock, even though that's also a painful term to me now. But that's where I was at the time. It's sort of, I don't know, I probably should have changed the band name at some point, but, I stubbornly held on to it. So,
Well, for the record, coming from me, that is not an epithet. And, also, like, I do still hear a through line,
hmm.
I think there's something about it's ironic to say the harmonic language, but just the general approach to songwriting where I can actually see sort of the start of it all in that early material. So it's interesting to go back there. So you've been the one constant member of the band since the beginning, so it'd be easy to assume that it's all your baby. But what's the division of labor been like when it comes to writing for the band? How did the other members contribute to writing your past 4 records?
The past 4, let's see. What is that? What is 4? That goes back to Countenance.
Yep.
Um, yeah, well, I mean, obviously I am the sort of the founding member and like main songwriter. So, basically I tend to write around 2/3 of a song. Sometimes I finish the song, but I 2/3 is a good place to shoot for, and then come up with a demo, and then I'll bring that in to the other guys so that they can one, give me some feedback and have a chance to sort of put their own spin on it. So that last third is really critical, and I think actually I'm going to put out some of my home demos with the deluxe download, so people can hear what I create on my own versus what it turns into, because it really gets fleshed out a lot. Connor, of course, I used to do demo drum parts. I hardly ever do that anymore because I just want it to be completely open to his stamp. The same with bass. I'll do very simple, here's the root note, and then you can run with that. And sometimes Oliver will change the harmony completely, which sometimes we'll struggle over that. But Oliver is also a very important element because he's, especially back to the power trio format, he's my only melodic collaborator. So even though he's in charge of the low end, it's also harmonies, and it's we'll play. He loves to play a bass harmony to a lead part that I'm playing, or a single note riff, and that can be a really cool sound. So yeah, so I mean, once we've worked it out with the rhythm section, it starts sounding so much huger. And also once I'm playing with the band, that'll give me more ideas for what I can do with my parts. Once everything's solid, I'll be oh, I can work in another layer here. Maybe I'll trigger a sample here. So that kind of thing. So those guys are really, really vital. And Oliver's also occasionally written some songs of his own. We didn't get a chance to on this album, but Placeholder was one of his, and then Interglacial he also wrote, which is one of the coolest rhythmic songs on Spider-Man. It's actually some people's favorite, which makes me a little self-conscious, but you should have the glory.
Very cool. And so I'm kind of envious of that arrangement, actually. I like
It
the
was a
sound.
really cool idea that he just like basically like wanted to use all these different forms of tuplets. So it makes it sound like there's a tempo change, but really it's just more and more tuplets being squashed into the quarter note.
Awesome. So one thing about Spider Milk that I think was really smart is that, and this is just my read on it, but I don't know if you did this consciously, but it feels like in going microtonal and maybe in having a second guitar player too, you kind of simplified the forms and structures you were using a little bit relative to permutations. Like the song lengths are a little shorter, you're doing a lot less looping. It's maybe a little um, more relaxed in some ways. And this makes me think of Bill Bruford talking about 80s King Crimson, how in playing these really complex rhythms, they made sure to keep a backbeat behind it and keep the harmonies simple. So like when you make certain elements of the music more complex, you need to simplify others in order to keep it more accessible. And I feel like you were doing that on that record. So was that a conscious choice or?
I think it was semi-conscious. I think what you just said is really, really true, and I've heard it from other people as well. It's definitely true in my experience that if you're doing one weird thing, maybe don't make everything completely weird and over the top at the same time. I mean, that can be its own aesthetic, which is great, but it can be really overwhelming. So unless you're going for specifically overwhelming people, that might not be the approach to take. Um, if
Right.
someone else is like really maximalist, like some people I know, like Emphysema might love that sort of thing, and then I might love their album. But like for what I make, I do like it to be like sort of balanced in the levels of complexity. The other thing with Spider Milk is I was figuring out how to even make a song in that tuning. And some of my early experiments, I felt like they were just like needlessly chromatic. It was like, hey, I have all these notes. I'm just going to use them randomly. And like, but what meaning do they have? What emotion do they give? So I kind of scaled back and I was like, okay, let me write some simple songs. Let me make sure that it's a song first, like a real song that has emotion, that has meaning. So like one of the first songs I wrote was Superposition of Silhouettes for Spider Milk. And if you listen to that, it's like relatively simple, but it works and it takes advantage of those new notes. So once I sort of had that down, I could sort of build on that and say, okay, this is working. It's music. Where can we build from there?
Yeah, I think that's brilliant because, a lot of music on that record is really gorgeous and, it shows that microtones, don't necessarily have to be off-putting for people to hear, So I think we were able to take it and really communicate with it, which a lot of, is obviously a major pitfall for experimental artists of not being able to clearly communicate something or losing the audience. And I feel like you created something that people can find a way into. So
Well, thanks so much. That was what I was shooting for. And I know a lot of people. There's still a lot of people who just like they just can't take it. It's really interesting to me. It's kind of unpredictable who will react that way. It's not always who you'd think.
huh,
Um, so but it definitely the people who get it really get it, and they appreciate it, and I appreciate them.
right on. So it feels like with this latest record, Self-Similar, you're kind of heading back in the direction of some of those more long form, dynamic, complex, loop-based structures that you had on Permutations. It's kind of like, all right, the audience has been introduced to this. Let's just take all the tools out of the toolbox and use the full roster of techniques. So I also don't know if that was a conscious choice, but it makes sense as sort of just a logical next step.
Yeah, absolutely. That was some of it. There was also the fact that like we had been downsized from a four-piece to a three-piece, and that made me it was really like very hard on me to know like because I want to top the previous album. So how am I supposed to do that with fewer elements and one less person, especially when that person was like really, really just like a great musician, a better guitar player than me, really an expert at microtonal tuning, and had great musical taste. So what am I supposed to do with that? Um, so I think I maybe reacted by going a little bit over the top. I was very concerned with like even being able to make an album that was as good as the previous one, much less one that was better. So I just, for one thing, like as far as like losing the fourth person, um, I looked for like all the ways that I could extend the layering of the music. Because the thing is, I was already doing looping. So it's not like I wasn't doing looping before and I'm going to add a looper pedal to make up for it. I was already, doing all the looping I could handle. So I had to like find more ways of extending that. And that ended up leading me into like some really cool stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, you probably remember when you first sent me the record, I still thought there were two guitar players. Like you completely tricked me with, especially the first few songs, into to thinking that there was still a second guitarist in the band. So clearly it worked. Um, but another way I feel like you're kind of making up for that is that this record features several guests, including
Yes.
myself. So I believe the genesis of the record was in an improvisation that you and Connor did with bassist Tom Shad in New York, right? Can you tell us a little about that? And who is
Yeah.
Tom? How do you know him, etc.?
Well, Tom is a great guy who actually he somehow found us on Facebook and he messaged me. And he's a bass player who lives in New York and he's very experienced. He sort of his big claim to fame is he was in the original Blue Man Group band for 25 years. The original the franchise now, but the original one that was in New York. So that was that's almost like I don't know, it's sort of a trial by fire. He said like the show would change every night. Everything was in 1/4. The onstage show would change, and they'd all have to change on the quarter note. So that was very impressive to me. He also plays a lot with just like a lot of the New York experimental scene, like Colin Marston, Nick Didkovsky. So like really cool, like veteran, expert, impressive people. So he was interested in me. That was exciting to me. I was like, yeah, sure, let's do something together. And he was also friends with Martin Bisi, who some people may recognize, has a studio in Brooklyn that's operated since 1986. It's been used for a lot of great artists. Sonic Youth, I think, recorded a couple of albums there, and many other great musicians. So he said he could hook us up with. He's like, we had a day off, so we was like, let's stay in New York an extra day and go record some stuff at the studio. And of course, if we were just gonna like record a couple of things live, but I was like, well, let's record a new song. Let's really do too much. Why not? Let's just do something that's totally ridiculous, which is kind of like my general approach to things. And I asked Deja to help write something for this, and Deja was like, okay, I'll try. And I was like, have you written anything yet? Have you written anything yet? So we sort of came up with a chord structure pretty much on the way to New York, like the day before. And when we got there, we had like a few hours. Everyone was just completely dead, so tired from being on the road. I think I passed out like halfway through the session. And then Deja took over and played like a tiny bit of guitar that's still in the track. But Deja deserves like the credit for writing most of the chord structure for that song. So it ended up being like, I think, an hour or so of recorded jamming. And then after tour, I got the tracks and I was just like, what have I done? What have I done? I have like this hour of, how am I going to turn this into a song? And it just took me forever. Like I finally edited it down to 3 minutes. It didn't quite feel complete. I was just like so sick of it. I thought I'd like edited the best I could, but I was done with it. I didn't want to sing to it. I didn't want to do anything. So I was talking to Tom out and he's like, well, why don't we get some vocalists? Who could we get for a vocalist? And then I thought of you, and so we sent it to you. And this is taking way too long to tell this story. So we sent it to you. You came up with some great stuff. I was so impressed that you like sort of turned it into a song. And then I think like it was COVID. I was just like, everything got sidetracked. And I just felt like the ending wasn't right. So I just like sat on it forever. And then so the original concept was I was going to write a companion song called Similar Self, which I did, and released it as an EP. But I never like EPs that much. I couldn't get excited about putting it out, and I felt bad about it, so I just sort of like clammed up about it. Sorry about that. And then once we'd written some more songs, finally I was like, okay, this is the title. The title is really great. Self-similar, like you can take it in so many ways, and I just love phrases that can be taken in a bunch of different ways and like send the listener's mind off into different interpretations. So this is the perfect name for like the concept of the album. Like, I'll just try and integrate that into the rest of the song. So it provided this organizing principle and like allowed the album to become an album. So very long-winded explanation, but that's how that song came to be. And like at the very end, I wrote a whole new ending and then the song felt complete. And I could finally put it out. It took forever putting this album together with COVID and everything else. I'm so glad it's done.
Yeah. According to the session date on my hard drive, I think it was July 2020 that I added vocals to it.
Yeah.
Does that seem right?
Yeah, I feel really bad about that.
No, I mean that's not even a long timeline for me. So, but
I'm glad I didn't put it out at the time because I feel like what it eventually turned into, like it did need those extra parts.
Yeah.
And also like EPs never get the attention you want them to. You should really just have a full-length album if you want anyone to listen to it.
Right. No, I agree. And it was interesting getting that request because I remember at the time I was just like, I don't know how to sing in 17 EDO, and you were just like, yeah, don't worry about it, just use your ear. And I think that worked out all
Exactly.
right. I can't tell, I haven't internalized the tuning system, but I think it sounds good.
It does sound good, and like 17 has a like the diatonic scale in it. It's tuned a little differently, but like you're naturally gonna sing along to the right notes by ear. And there's a lot of people in the microtonal world, no offense to anybody, but who like really overthink things way too much. And you gotta make the music. The notes are there, just use them. It's really not as complicated as you can make it, because you can make it just unendingly complicated, and then you'll never do anything. So I say just like learn some basics and then dive right in, especially for vocals. Just feel it out. And as you saw, it's not that scary, really.
Yeah, no, it really wasn't. And if I recall correctly too, right? Like Tom played a piccolo bass on this track, and I think he was playing in 12 while you guys were in 17. And
well, he sort of tried. It was a fretless piccolo bass, and I think
Okay.
he made some like grease pencil marks to approximate where 17 was. But I mean, he was brand new to it too, so it didn't really come out intonated perfectly. But fortunately, Melodyne exists, and I was able to fix all that up.
right.
I mean, it was a spur of the moment creation. So there's no reason that you would expect that to be perfect. But fortunately, we have the tools to correct it.
Yeah, and it all worked out. And I remember getting the track and his bass kind of being more like a second guitar, and being like, this needs bass. And then Oliver played on it, and it just
Right.
textualized the harmonies in a really interesting way. It was so cool to hear the song come together.
Oh yeah, I mean, he was always going to play on it, but he had some friends in New York he wanted to hang out with that night, and it wasn't really ready for him anyway. So he came in later and came up with some great bass parts.
Cool. Well, let's give that song a listen.
Awesome.
This is the title song, Self-Similar.
Held back, repeat the loop. Each day, comfort and discomfort. But if you let
Great job on that song.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And I mean, thanks for asking me to do it.
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't have had the album title. I mean, even though I came up with it, it was suggested by your lyrics, and wouldn't have had that. I really like things to have like. It's not this is a concept album, but I like for things to have concepts, like songs to have a concept. Um, I feel like once I know what a song's about, it could just be a title or a phrase. Everything is going to grow out of that, and then I know what's happening. If I don't
Yeah,
have that, it's hard for me to progress a composition anywhere.
yeah, absolutely. And I guess at the time I had pretty recently found my way out of a 6 year depressive hole, and the lyrics I wrote reflected on that sense of stuckness. But you saw this nugget of recursion in there, and proposed a bunch of song titles along those lines, and Self-Similar ended up being the one that stuck. Um, so I guess shortly after that came the idea to write Similar Self. So can you tell us a little about that song? I mean, the middle of it is especially cool. You're making an awful lot of sound, and it's almost like a swarm of bees or something. Like, so how do the lyrics relate to the lyrics of the title song, and does the music reflect that at all? I mean, certainly I hear the connection in the outro that you added to the title song, but are there others?
Right. Well, I just thought of so many interpretations for self-similar. Like the default definition would be like a fractal, or there's other things in nature that are self-similar. For example, a tree. So that's fitting, right? So a tree has a trunk, it splits off, each branch splits off again, splits off again. And I sort of love that patterns. Look, it's everywhere in nature. It's in life, like what decision you make, like you know, life decision tree. It's a decision tree. Everything you do every day. So it's like, well, this is just about life. It's about everything about life. Is so deep. You can go anywhere. With the song "Similar Self," I think it sort of takes a note from your subject matter of feeling stuck. It's kind of the idea, sort of maybe like a little bit of a dark take on the idea that, and it's sort of it's a little autobiographical too, that like you're constantly trying to redefine yourself, or at least some people are. I am. With like writing a new album, I'm trying to like I'll turn over and it's like the new improved me as a songwriter, the new improved version of the band, new improved album. It's all brand new, totally new. They changed so much. They're so much better, right? Um, you're trying to do that, but at the same time, like you can't get away from yourself. Like the old saw, like wherever you go, there you are. You can't get away from yourself. You're always a similar self, and so the lyrics are like transformed and terraformed at the core. You're solely a similar self. So it's like something that's like sort of frustrating, but it's also like something you have to be at peace with. So that's sort of like where that was like the feelings I was expressing with that. And then at the end, it's message to myself: you will do what I tell you, not what you tell me. So it's like the duality of like who you are inside, but what you're trying to tell yourself you are, or what you want to do. Is that conflict? So it's sort of hopefully ends on a hopeful note that I'm ordering myself to do what I really want to do, and that's what's going to happen now.
Cool.
Hopefully that doesn't destroy like the mystery or fun of the song, but since this is an interview that few people will ever see, or maybe thousands will, who knows? But that's kind of what that song's about.
No, that's really cool. I mean, that's real, you know. Um, so you mentioned then that it's not a concept album in a broader sense, but it does seem like there are common themes throughout the lyrics, and I hear a lot about contradiction, hypocrisy, and the complexity of identity. Um, so what do you see as kind of the common themes, or the through line between all these songs?
Oh, that's tough. I think probably self-transformation is a big theme. I mean, that's the subject matter of Grown Apart as well. Um, and it's like, were we going to talk about that? And that might be a good lead into that subject.
Yeah, we are. Um, yeah, we can go there now if you want.
Okay, am I skipping anything if I go there?
I can reorganize. Don't worry about it.
Okay, okay.
So go right ahead. Um, yeah. So "Grown Apart" is the song we listened to right at the start of this stream, and yeah, I mean it's a track that really blows my mind. It's like the middle of kind of like the middle of Similar Self, where it's just like you're producing this giant, massive sound without a second guitarist. But we'll talk about all that in a moment. So do you want to talk about the lyrics to that song first?
Yeah, well, like I was saying earlier, like when you hit on the concept for a song, that's what like really makes it take off for me. And like sometimes you in your notes here, you're asking like, what are these songs about? They're venting frustrations, etc. I mean, a lot of the times they really develop from language for me, like just a phrase that strikes, or like it's just a pun. I mean, I love puns, but it's not necessarily a jokey pun. It's like grown apart. So what can grown apart mean? Well, you might first think like it's two people who've grown apart, like a relationship. You've grown apart over time. You're further apart in the world. But then it's like, oh, what if it just means like I've grown like a new hand out of my shoulders, like so that was the video concept. But yeah, just like that wordplay led to all these additional ideas, and then like the song itself started growing new parts. And so I just loved all of that. And then I put it together with this old demo with the pitch bend, and that to me sounded like like a plant growing, or like a beanstalk. It's like reaching up into the sky. So like, oh, this is the perfect combination of subject matter and sound. Um, so yeah, that's sort of the origin of that song.
Cool. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, it's a really cool lyric too. But the song itself with, or rather the music in the song with all these loopers and delays and pitch shifters and you're able to somehow reproduce all that live without running tracks, which is just wild to me. So the beginning of that song, right? You're playing a 4-note pattern that gets moved up by a pitch shifter, and I believe in this song it's not just in 17 EDO, but because of the pedals you're using, there's some 34 and even 68 as well,
Right.
right?
So on the bendy part, what's happening is it's over 16 beats, it's shifting up by a 17 Edo minor third. So that's 4 steps of 17. So over the 16, that means that you're shifting up by 1 step of 68 Edo, which 4 times 17, on every quarter note. So every quarter note, it's shifting up by 15 cents, as a step in 17 is 70 cents, 70.5 for the purists, Stephen Weigel. But yeah, so that's how it's 68, and that it's because it's hard to have a whole lot of instruments for playing live. The easiest way to extend the tuning systems is just to subdivide 17. So the other thing I did on Grown Apart, for the verse of Grown Apart, there's a pitch shifted delay. And the Line 6 Helix lets you use pitch shifting with an arbitrary cents value. So what I did there, one example of those chords is I'm just playing a root fifth an octave on the guitar, on the 17 guitar, and then I have a pitch shifted delay, I think it's like a dotted eighth or something, and that's set to a just major third. So when you echo the root fifth an octave with the just major third, you get a nice just major seventh chord, because the fifth plus the just major third makes a just major seventh. So that sounds, it has that buzz, it has that JI buzz that people talk about because it's perfectly tuned to the harmonic series. So that was another, what I thought, I can say, so like a clever way to get some notes outside 17, some new microtonal sounds, without, switching to a completely different guitar.
Wow. Yeah, okay. So that's just the verse of the song that
Yeah.
he was just talking about. And there's so much more going on in this song as well. So I mean, I feel like maybe we should almost just like talk about each section and then listen to it again, just so people can understand. what's going on here. So starting with the intro, I believe that part's in 34, right? Where your pitch shifter
The
is
bendy intro, that's 68.
that. Oh,
That's
it's that.
that's the
Okay.
that's the
Okay.
shift over 16 beats.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So they're
And then
both.
the verse is the 34. That's
I
where
got it
I'm using
backwards.
the just major third that comes from 34 Edo. So we're calling that 34. I mean, it's notated in 34 just so that we can easily put in that note without like special casing it.
Got it.
And it
Okay.
might
So,
be overselling it a little bit to say it's in 34, but it's a little bit of marketing there, whatever.
hey, close enough for literally anybody's ears, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No. I mean, so the intro, you've got this 4-bar pattern that's in 68 that you then feed into a looper, and you're just playing the same 4 notes 4 times, but they get pitch shifted up with each group of 4, right?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
happening, but also then I'm like moving the chord up the neck too, so it's like some different inversions and like slightly different notes. So that's also layering along with the bend, creating
Right.
that
Right.
overall effect.
So you're putting like a 4-bar thing in there, and then you're
Yes,
moving up, and then putting another 4-bar thing on top of that, and then moving up, putting another 4-bar thing on top of that, and they all have the pitch shifter going. Like every fifth note, it moves it up a little bit, right?
exactly.
I mean, it just sounds absolutely wild. So let's just hear that part again, so you can hear what I'm talking about. Um, Okay, so you've got 4 layers going at once through a looper that this upward pitch bend is applying to, all 4 of them.
Right, because I remember I was
Yeah.
talking about like what can I do beyond the looper? This is that
Yeah.
extra thing beyond the looper
Yeah.
that I found to add.
It's so cool. It sounds awesome.
Thanks so
And
much.
then and then you've got for the verse here, which is the just intonation bit that you were just talking about.
Yeah,
You set it up so the pitch shifter is actually hocketing with you, so it's bouncing back and forth, so it sounds like there's 2 guitars there, right?
right. Yes, and
Um,
it's also stereo panned to enhance that effect.
right.
And
So
play that.
I've grown apart, and I think it's a work of art. I've grown a limb, and there's no textbook that it's in. A blooming bone that emanates an eerie tone, a new appendage. So maybe now you'll get the message.
all right, and then you go from there into pre-chorus, where instead of having the guitars staggered, the delay is now playing with you, but it's playing the same pattern offset from you, right?
Right. It's just an octave pitch delay. So it's just back to 17, boring old 17.
Right, but then you switch it up because that section starts in 4/4. Then you switch to a version of it in 5, and then Connor starts playing 7/4 underneath that 5, and it gets polymetrics for a second. So the harmony may get simplified for a moment, but then the rhythm takes over, right?
And that's a great example of the contribution of Oliver and Connor, because that's sort of the section like I was gonna be in 5 and then lead into the chorus, and they were like, let's do something cool there. Let's do an interesting polyrhythm. So they did it's kind of like their trademark thing is to Connor will come up. Well, one of them will come. They'll be like, well, what numbers line up? What can we wedge in like without having to have like a partial bar at the end or something? So they'll figure out all the numbers, and then they'll play something that's like in unison. So I love having a loop going, or like what will often end up is I'm playing like something very straight, like eighth notes, and they're doing like something really wild and polymetric behind me, and that creates like even without looping, that creates like a really cool big texture from three people. So I don't see anything behind you. This is a very professional interview.
Thank you, thank you.
You see me.
Yes. um, yeah, no, that's super cool. And then so you've got this 5 loop just continuing with that's offset against itself while they're playing in 7, and then you jump in with a lead part that has a harmonizer on it, and then you're also recording that lead part into the looper so you can play it back again later.
Right. That's another thing I added, which is what I call auto looping. I had to set up some loops that my foot was just not available to trigger all the starts and ends. So what I was using the same method that I set up the MIDI pitch bends. I set up like a MIDI sequence is basically like, okay, start a loop, record 18 beats, stop, then wait another 18 beats and play it back once. So that's what I used for recording that lead part and then playing it back during the chorus, because there's a limit to like how much I can actually do with my feet while I'm playing and also trying to sing. So that was a technique that enabled me to have that lead part in the chorus where I really wanted it to happen. But also, you know, like it has an effect on the composition. Like I do have to have that part, like I have to pre-play it somewhere to bring it back later. So, but as you said, like limitations can be inspiring. So that was a case of that.
Right, and it's so cool to hear how you built those limitations into the composition, you know. So let's listen to that section now.
It's not done yet, but it's a starting gun. I think I finally got the one. I've grown apart.
Yeah. Yeah, just wild. All right. So I'm not gonna
The lead part let me use a lot of neutral seconds, which I haven't mentioned. But I love neutral seconds so much. They're one of my favorite thing about 17. They're directly in between a major and minor second, and they sound very distinct. You can just like put them in a melody, and it'll instantly make the melody more interesting. They're weird to harmonize, so the harmonization is just fourths, which sometimes I'll just fall back to fourths because they pretty much always sound good.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to mention that about that little lead part.
Yeah, no, that's really, really cool. So yeah, I'm a sheet music guy, obviously, and so I've got to ask about Stephen Weigel transcribing the entire record, because that's a bonus for the super deluxe nerd edition of the album, right? Which I love that that's a thing. So how exactly do you notate this music?
Well, this is Stephen Weigel's time to shine. And for anyone who doesn't know who Stephen Weigel is, he's sort of a luminary figure in the Microtonal community. He's just an expert at all sorts of things, and he's one of the few people who can really bridge notation and actual music performance and theory. Because there's a lot of people who like will do one of those things and not the other. So he kind of like is a bridge between all these different worlds. So he is helping me. He's transcribed the entire album by ear using Dorico, and I'm currently like reviewing the final transcriptions he's provided, which I'm mostly doing by ear because I really can't read this stuff in any efficient way. So I listen to the MIDI playback in Dorico, and I see what sounds right or wrong. I drag things that sound wrong, but for the most part, he does an amazing job. So he does have a very intelligent thing that I can read to you about how he does this,
Yeah.
which I understand mostly. So Stephen says, for Western music, 17 tet uses native fifth notation, meaning one constructs a 17 tet circle of fifths and then uses those letters accordingly. Microtonal Stein-Zimmermann accidentals, as we all know, the microtonal Stein-Zimmerman accidentals. They are the already accepted quarter tone accidentals used nowadays. This is an entirely uncontroversial way to notate 17 tet. No controversy, no controversy. And by extension, 34 tet, since additional arrow accidentals are all that is necessary. We used Gould arrow accidentals because they mark the lines and spaces well and are also already established contemporary symbols. For the 68 tet logic and grown apart, lifts and drops were used as a secondary arrow system to the ups and downs, meaning that all the notation systems could easily be encapsulated within one another. Edit. You should say microtonal Stein-Zimmerman accidentals are also used to notate enharmonic equivalents. This is more specific and doesn't let the audience think that any quarter tone based accidental is spelled by fifth. So I'm sure everyone followed that, and reach out to Stephen if you didn't. But it is actually relatively simple to notate 17. And for anyone who already understands notation, it shouldn't be a big stretch.
All right. Well, I think I'm going to have to listen back to that several more times and probably just go talk to Stephen. So it looks like you're already answering the questions in the chat. Yeah.
When we were playing music, I was
Cool.
typing back to people. I can't really do them at the same time, though.
Right. So let's see if there's
Anything I should answer?
anything in there.
Oh, someone asked about, Jack asked a question about an emphysema album that I mixed recently.
Yeah.
I'll remember to answer that when we get to talking about her project.
Yeah. So yeah, while we're on that subject, can you tell us a bit about some of the other guests on this record? Because, some of them are people that you have other projects with.
Yes, well, so that's a good way actually to talk about the side projects too. Damon Waitkiss is fantastic, really world-class musician. He's not well known enough for his amazing band Jack the Clock, which has really been around for a while. And for most of their history, they had the rhythm section from the Fred Frith Trio, which gives you some idea about the level of musicianship involved in that band. Just tremendous, really unique songwriting, really unique sound, like a blend of avant prog and folk music. It's very acoustic, but it's very sophisticated. Really not like anything else. And I found out about them because we were playing Prague Day in 2015, the Prague Festival in North Carolina, and they were on the bill, and they were one of the audience favorites. I was completely blown away. The first because I remember when they were setting up on stage, Damon pulled out a hammered dulcimer, and I was like, oh, I think I'm gonna like this. And then he pulled out some alligator clips and started putting them on the strings. I was like, okay, this might be my new favorite band. I had also listened to their album Night Loops, which is still my favorite album of theirs. So anyway, a few years ago, I think in 2020, I posted some really embarrassing emo Facebook update. It's like, I really want to support other people's music more, and people should collaborate with me. And so Damon sent me an email asking if I wanted to do a collaboration. We were just thinking of doing a song or two. But I did something I've been doing in the past 4 years or so, which is if you're gonna work with me on something, we're gonna make it microtonal, because I have to get these microtones in. I just have to do it. If I don't do it, I might forget how to do it, and I need to spread the microtones like Johnny Appleseed. On the recent tour we did, I don't remember who came up with it. It might have been Emphysema, came up with the term microdosing for describing getting people hooked on microtones. So I want to make sure everyone gets microdosed. So Damon, to his credit, had no experience with microtonality, but I think he might have dealt with some quarter tone experiments in school. But he was down for it, and he just he just dove into it. I sent him a 17 Ito guitar. This is sometimes I just have to give people instruments so they can do microtonal music with me. And he just did an amazing job. He's an incredible songwriter, incredible lyric writer. Um, Everything he does is really, really from the heart. And even though he has excellent technique and he understands theory, he never gets stuck on that. Everything is the music first, and that's something I really admire and something I strive for myself. So we did an album during COVID when we were both stuck at home. Um, the self-titled Ventifacts album, and then we did an EP that was a Microtonal cover of REM EP Chronic Town, which like literally nobody in the world heard or cares about, because like the Venn diagram of people who like REM and like interested in microtonality and interested in prog, they're like all circles that are miles apart. But I like it. I like that we did it. And we actually stayed at Damon's house for a couple days on our most recent tour. And hopefully I really do want to do another Ventifacts album. Hopefully we'll get a chance sometime in the next year or two. But he did vocals and hammered dulcimer and some other acoustic instruments on a couple of the songs on Self Similar, and really I felt like elevated those songs a ton. I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah, and after the incident, that part is kind of essential, you know.
Oh, it was so epic after he added his stuff. I couldn't believe it. I'm so happy.
And then Nick Prohl appears on this record too, right?
Yes, yes. My favorite Nick Prohl, or Knee Pre as we call him sometimes. I'm trying to popularize that. But Nick was someone I sort of ran into quite a while ago now on Facebook, and he was getting all these amazing guests to appear on his album, and I was like, who's this guy getting all these guests? And then I checked out his songs on SoundCloud, and it's like, wow, okay, he's got the goods songwriting wise. Maybe needs a little help with the lo-fi production, but I could help with that. And he needs a drummer. Maybe there's a match here. So I sort of tried to worm my way in with him, and we became great friends. We have a lot of musical influences in common, and it's been really, really fun helping make albums with him. And I'm currently actually working on the third Nick Prohl and the Proletarians album, which is Erstwhile Alpha Bestiary, Book 2. We did Book 1 a couple years ago, and that was mythical creatures from A through L, and this will be M through Z, another 15 or so creatures of an alternate dimension dream world. So I love doing that. Nick is an incredible, unique songwriter. He's just like really got an approach that's all his own, and yeah, it lets me flex different muscles and wear different hats, and he will let me play bass on his album, which no one else will do. So that's also a chance for me to do that.
Cool. And you've mentioned emphysema a few times now.
Oh yes. Yes, so right before, at the same time as I was finishing up the mixing for Self Similar, I had this album that she had given me to mix. I mixed a couple of her past previous albums. We've known each other almost 4 years online, and managed to finish up the album Trying Not to Try, which also featured some other guests, like Jack, who's in the chat, and his friend who plays drums. I forget his name, but so what would Emphysema is a really super unique artist. Like when I first heard her music, I couldn't even tell what I was hearing. I'd never heard anything like it before. It's maximalist, it's over the top, it's often very fast and crazy and really dense. And it took some rewiring of my brain, and then I started to love it. And I love music that has that effect on me. It just helps me listen in a different way, helps me experience sound in a new way. So getting to mix her albums was a really awesome experience. It really, I think it helped me grow a lot, just like in terms of my ear and in terms of my like engineering. So I'm really happy that I've now mixed 3 albums for her, and we're working on another future project that I can't really talk about yet, but I'm looking forward to doing lots more stuff with her because she's incredible and brilliant.
Very cool. Yeah, well, I can confirm firsthand that all the albums you just mentioned are very worth listening to. So please go listen to them all. And Let's see. Nick Prohl is very insistent that I ask you about Mike Rowe.
That's an in joke. I think Mike Rowe, let's see, is like Dirty Jobs, the reality show Dirty Jobs. He was the host of that show, and so Nick just makes comments about Mike Rowe for when we're talking about micro tuning. So he just
okay.
Mike Rowe, and Nick is really funny. I enjoy that stuff.
Yes,
Nick is really
back.
funny. I enjoy that stuff. I'm a very humorous fellow, and I enjoy humor, as should we all.
Yes, indeed. Well, thank you
Nick
so
Kroll
much
says,
for.
Jesus, he actually asked.
Yeah. Don't try me, Nick. Don't try me. I'm doing it. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Ben. Everyone, please go buy the record and support this amazing music. So where can we buy this record and in what formats?
Oh, well, first, thank you, Gabriel, for being interested in doing this interview. Thank you for contributing to the album. Everyone should really go check out the Gabriel Construct album, which is like another really cool and, speaking of which, dense and really ambitious album. It's very worth your time, and it will take you to new places, I promise. And I hope we'll be getting another one before too long, if you can fit it into your schedule.
Working on it.
As far as the Mercury Tree album, Self-Similar, it is available from all your friendly local Bandcamps, and it would be great if you purchase it from Bandcamp. It's still the most artist-friendly platform because we have to. It's also on all the streaming services, but we don't get any money. We basically just don't get any money from anywhere, but we might get a little if you get it on Bandcamp. And also on Bandcamp, you can get the Super Deluxe Nerd Edition, which will have some demo tracks. It'll have unreleased and demo tracks, and also MIDI versions of all the songs and fully transcribed versions from Stephen Weigel. Very, very arduously transcribed and impressively transcribed by Stephen Weigel. So anyone who's interested in that stuff, definitely can check it out. And we really thank you for your interest.
All right. Thank you so much, Ben. Let's listen to the song Similar Self to close things out. And I hope you all have a great night.
You're such a sim, 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 sim,